Well, the wait is finally over as the Home Affairs Minister, Motsoaledi, reopens the refugee centre in Cape Town. Now, in the 10 years since the closure of the offices, refugees would have to travel over 1,000 kilometres to Durban, Musina, Gqeberha or Tshwane. Well, Newzroom Afrika reporter Nasiphi Same joins us live with more on this. Nasiphi, this centre, 10 years in the making. What else can you tell us?
Well, one could say it's 10 years or a decade in the making, but we understand that it's been about 11 years since the closure of the refugees and asylum seekers offices here in Cape Town by Home Affairs. However, today we finally get to see the reopening here at Epping, which obviously is going to be benefiting the asylum seekers and refugees that will be in the Western Cape or are in the Western Cape. But I am joined by Cheryl Duss from the Legal Resources Centre, who's the director there. Cheryl, thank you so much for your time. But you guys played an instrumental role in taking not only the department to court in the last decade, but also the facility that we see behind us finally being opened.
Yes, it has been a very long and arduous journey. There's been a total of 3 cases that we brought against the Department of Home Affairs. But we're very grateful that at the end, that the department agreed to come to the table and submit to a case management process. And this is the result of it, that finally we've got some good transparency from the Department of Home Affairs in sharing what steps they've taken to rebuild the centre. And so we're sitting here today. We are extremely happy that finally, after 11 years, that the centre is now finally opened.
Take us back to those 11 years when the doors closed and your clients coming to you asking for assistance. What motivated you in taking up this case and the 11-year battle?
So, the refugees and asylum seekers, they are a very small group of foreign nationals that are really forced to flee their countries. They are not voluntarily leaving their countries like other foreign nationals in South Africa. And they form a very small percentage of the population of foreign nationals in South Africa, but they are the most vulnerable. They're fleeing war, they're fleeing persecution, and really it's our obligation as South Africa to ensure that we give them asylum and we give them protection. And the absence of a refugee reception office means that they lack access to services like documentation, which is vital for their protection. Without documentation, they're vulnerable to arrest and deportation, and refoulement, which is being sent back to their countries from which they fled. So it is extremely important that asylum seekers and refugees had access to these services, and this is why we're so thrilled today that they do.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, there from the Legal Resources Centre. I'm also joined by the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Motsoaledi. Sir, thank you so much for your time. Finally seeing the doors open for refugees in the Western Cape to be able to access services within the borders of the Western Cape rather than travelling thousands of kilometres to get access to documentation. Talk to us about the process in having this office open.
Well, let's make it clear. It was never our intention or our plan to have offices here closed. We have got 5 refugee reception centers in the country. 1 in Musina, the biggest in Pretoria, the Desmond Tutu Refugee Reception Center. 1 here in Cape Town, then Gqeberha, then Tshwane. The physical office here was not closed because Home Affairs chose to do so. It was because the business people in which area it was located lodged a complaint about the nuisance factor of that office and the issues of zoning. And as you know, our offices in Home Affairs, we procure them through Department of Public Works, who go to look for landlords for us and service providers. And after those people took us to court, the business people, etc., and they won, we were forced by a court of law to move that office. Then we said Public Works looks for another office for us. They look for a service provider who in the middle of that construction abandoned everything and said he no longer has got any money. And in terms of the law, Public Works has to start from the beginning to procure. That's why then the court cases happened. Because to members of the public, like even to NGOs like the Legal Resource Centre, they believe it's the government that is dragging its feet. So I just wanted to explain that, and that's why then we came here and we decided that let's take this lemon and turn it into lemonade. Let's open a center that has got 3 facilities: the Refugee Reception Office, the Refugee Appeals Authority, and a civic office where South Africans can come on a booking basis to take IDs and passport in a very, very open and clear atmosphere. And that's what we have achieved today.
Minister, have we been able to quantify the number of refugees and asylum seekers that have been impacted by this closure in the last decade?
Well, look, they were impacted by inconvenience, but it's not that they were not getting services, as we have already said. They have to travel to Gqeberha or to go to Pretoria, some even to Musina. And so it's not that totally there were no services for them. It's only that it was difficult for them to get those services. Now they will get them within reach.
And then shortly for us, Minister, the refugees and asylum seekers that have been protesting since 2019 at Paint City and Wingfield, what is the status in that regard as to where they're being accommodated right now?
Well, that's very silly, extremely silly. I don't understand. Why do you say where will they be accommodated? No, I'm just asking. I said you were asking where will they be accommodated, right? In South Africa from 1994, we opted for a policy which nobody in the continent opted for, a policy of non-encampment. We don't put people in camps. We allow them to integrate and live like anybody else in the community, such that your own neighbor could be a person from another country. That's what we've been doing. Those people left their homes where they've been here in Cape Town and claimed that there's xenophobia and they are being killed. And I've never seen anybody who was killed here in Cape Town. And went into the Methodist Church, as you know, and there was a court judgment. Before we could implement it, there was COVID and we moved to those tents. Now COVID is over, they are refusing to move because they are making a demand not on us, on United Nations, that it must take them to Canada. United Nations have told them no, it's not going to happen in a million years, and they are sitting there by force.
Minister, we're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Motsoaledi, the Home Affairs Minister, at the reopening of the Cape Town Refugee Reception Centre here in Epping. We did hear from the Legal Resources Centre, which also played an instrumental role in taking the Home Affairs Department to court. However, we are hearing from the minister, the reasons behind the closure of the refugee offices here in Cape Town for close to 11 years. But from what we understand is that the doors have been now officially open for refugees and asylum seekers to make use of these services, the ones that are in the Western Cape.